your question into the chat and we'll ask your question there. And that's about it. I think we're ready to go. Before I introduce you to well, I will introduce you now to Scott and James. And before they get started, Scott or James, do you want to maybe just tell us a little bit about what you're going to cover today?
Sure thing. So it kind of jumps straight in at that. So hi everyone, my name's James Gibb. I cover most of the IT hardware and software support for the OGTC. And these are the kind of things we're going to be speaking about today. So starting off, what led us to this point, what stages were there in my career that led me to where I am today? What can a career in IT mean, which isn't necessarily what you think? And then what's next? What things have we got looking forward for careers in IT? So I shall just plug on straight to my first slide.
Fantastic. So your 20 minutes starts now.
Thanks, Susan. So I had a couple of jobs, a couple of part-time jobs when I was younger, working in shops and restaurants. But I got my first full-time job working as a labourer for a tree surgeon. And this taught me very quickly to use my own initiative to go and find work to do, as I would likely get tools thrown at me if I stood about with my hands in my pockets. I attended Robert Gordon's University studying computing for the internet and multimedia, pretty much because I had no idea what I wanted to do. But as a PC gamer, I knew my way around a computer. Most of what I did at uni involved JavaScript, HTML and SQL, all things I'm sure IT folk out there are familiar with, programming essentially. But then during my third year, I dropped out. During that time in my life, I found uni to be a very hard environment to learn in, and it simply wasn't for me. So after that, I was lucky enough to be taken on by Rotec Engineering as an apprentice mechanical technician. I served my time there and completed a National Certificate in Manufacturing Engineering, which is my only qualification to date since leaving school. I learned a huge amount working for Rotec. When I joined, they were heavily into research and development, and I had a fantastic opportunity to develop technical problem-solving skills that I still use to this day. So as an example, if you're troubleshooting and testing any problem, only change one variable at a time so you know which change had the desired effect. Whilst at Rotec, I was asked if I would take on some of the responsibilities of the IT body in-house, as their current engineer was moving on. I gladly stepped into this role, knowing it would be a chance to develop some new skills. One's a bit more relative to my hobby as a PC gamer. And I got the opportunity to build offshore computers from scratch and develop a thorough testing routine for them, as well as other offshore electronics such as sonar. So finally, an opportunity arose for me to develop some steps into a fully fledged IT support role. And I took a job at Dynamic Edge. This was a negative move financially to start with, as it was a pay cut. However, through the engineers there, I learned a huge amount. So Dynamic Edge are a managed service provider, or MSP. They provide IT support, training, development, and other services to companies across the world, the whole of the UK. My colleagues were a library of knowledge that spanned many years of experience in various disciplines of computing, and I tried to sponge up as much of that knowledge as I possibly could. Dynamic Edge took a risk hiring me because I had limited experience at that point, but I'm really grateful that they did, as it gave me that foot in the door to start a career I could really build upon and enjoy. So finally, this led me to where I am today. I took the job at OGTC and my skills continued to develop. I get the opportunity to offer IT support to a company that is all about investing in and promoting new technology. And more recently, I've even been going down the lines of development. Now, this is something I swore when I left uni I would never do again because I didn't enjoy it in university. But I'm having a great time doing it now. It's amazing how a few years career experience and some context to the work you're doing changes your outlook. So I guess the thing to take away from this kind of random collage of images that are before you is that you are not restricted by your experience and your qualifications. In my experience, my ability to prove my skills, my value, and my interest in the job have been far more relevant to any success in my career. That's one too many. There we go. We all have our preconceptions of what a career in IT might entail. So nerds, geeks, thick glasses, and love of Warcraft. But in reality, this is not always the case. There are many different realms of IT, and your particular skills and ambitions could make you a perfect fit for one over another. So these basic examples are from my own experience. I have no doubt that there will be others. So covering the first one, support. This isn't just technical knowledge and experience in regards to hardware and software and the kind of things you'd expect. It also aligns itself quite heavily with the customer service skills. Development, this is all about creative thinking, being able to think up new solutions to problems within the constraints of a virtual environment. And then management. These are organization skills, planning skills, being able to effectively manage and align resources, policies, contracts, processes to ensure a secure and stable digital working environment for a company. I leave this bit to Scott because I'm useless at this. Think about what you enjoy doing and what skills you would like to develop. You're going to have a much more fulfilling career if you're working towards something that you get a kick out of doing. So as an example for support then, so I handle the help desk at OGTC. People log requests for IT support onto this help desk. So I will prioritize them, I'll respond to them, and eventually, hopefully, fix them. Firstly, this process involves translation. What is this person telling you? Often somebody will simply say, my internet is broken, or my files have gone. So it's important to respond and try and pull as much information out as possible. What's going on with their internet? Are they wired? Are they wireless? Are they still connected to anything? Are they using a VPN, a mobile hotspot? Asking the right questions is a huge part of this. Prior to problem solving, the first skill you have to use is your ability to translate what you're being told into real symptoms. Once I understand what's happening, I then go into problem solver mode. What are the potential causes to these symptoms? Like, has there been a thunderstorm recently? Can anything in the house connect to the internet? Having these causes leads you nicely into the solutions that could fix the problem. So if your home Wi-Fi is down, potentially because of a recent storm, try a separate source for your internet, such as a mobile hotspot. I mentioned earlier, customer service plays an important part here. Being friendly and approachable to get as much information from your colleague as possible is key. Keep them reassured that they have not, in fact, brought down the entirety of the internet by clicking buttons on a website. Remain calm, we've got your back. Communication is highly important, as nobody likes to be ignored. So even if you don't know the answer to this question, or you don't have time to work on it just now, let them know you've seen the ticket and you'll get around to it as soon as you can. I'm very click happy today. So staying on the same slide, development. So I find that this is problem solving, but on a much larger scale. And often it leads to opportunities to develop new solutions to other problems that may exist. So working alongside our colleague Gordon, I've had a good opportunity to learn how to develop some basic applications to help automate certain processes in the business. This absolutely lends itself to creative thinking. There is very rarely only one solution to a problem. There will be a variety of options and processes or systems out there that can fulfill a problem specification. And it's your job as a developer to use your experience, your ability to research, to isolate which one you think will be best. Justify it and then start developing it. Planning and design fit nicely into this role as well, because having a clear picture of the problem and the potential solution is hugely important to communicate to yourself and your colleagues. And then management, as I've mentioned, I have very little experience in this, but this is something that Scott's going to cover for me right now.
Okay, thanks, James. Excellent. So just to follow on from what James is saying, I'm just going to take a quick look in the chat just to see who's in here. So we've got Liam in here. He's saying he's in telecoms and he's looking for a career change. And there's also Simona, so from the TechX cohort. So welcome along. If you've got any questions at this stage, put them into the chat. We'd love to hear actually why you're here on the webinar in the first place. So off of what James is saying, give you a little bit of a introduction to myself. My name is Scott Millar. I'm the systems lead at the OGTC. That basically means that I maintain and manage the IT and the systems for the organization. I started out my career age 12 actually. So my gran at the time, she gave me a nice bundle of cash and she said, go and buy yourself a computer, Scott. So I went and got a computer. I spent days looking for the best spec price computer for the price, and the money that she gave me at the time was a lot of money. And the first thing that I did when I got that computer home was I took it all apart and then attempted to put it back together again. And that just turned into like a hobby for me, was, working with PCs, computers on a Windows desktop. So I kind of come from the era of Windows 95. That's kind of where I first started. So you can probably guess my age from that. But from that hobby turned into a career. So I got my first proper job at a large charity here in Aberdeen. They're called Inspire. They've got around about 50 sites throughout the northeast of Scotland, 600 users. So there was a lot of IT infrastructure to maintain and manage. And I was the only IT person there. And I was kind of given free rein to do whatever I want with it. So I had a lot to learn because it was my first proper job in IT. And plus I knew a lot about desktop computers, when it came to servers and data centers and IT infrastructure and networks, I didn't have the first clue. So when I first started this journey, I got a really good bit of advice, though, from an IT professional. And they said, when you're looking at these bigger systems, Scott, that's specifically the hardware systems, they're really just bigger. They've got, instead of one hard drive, they've got 6 hard drives. Instead of one power supply unit, they've got 2 or 3. So they're built for redundancy. It's still the same thing that you're aware of on your desktop computer. It's just a bit of a different setup. So knowing that kind of that insight, or that frame of reference, really gave me the confidence that I needed to drive forward in my career in IT. And I kind of went in full throttle into that support role at Inspire, and it was awesome. Stayed there for 7 years, and I learned everything there was to know about Citrix infrastructure, if you want the technicalities around it. But I realized that I only knew this one system, and I really want to get experience of other systems. So I started with an MSP, just happens to be the same company that James was with. I was there for a number of years, and it was awesome because the amount of clients Dynamic Edge have meant that I could learn all these different types of systems. And I wasn't only learning about all the different systems, I was also meeting new people almost every day. So I had to kind of gear up my people skills. And I was very much the type of individual that would sit in the server room and didn't really want to come out of that server room and speak to people. So that really gave me the push forward. And I was looking at my technical colleagues at the time, and I thought, how can I take this even further? And I went into an actual sales role, and a lot of people kind of look down at sales and business development, but I'll get into a little bit about that later on, and some of the things that I'm going to describe to you here. And that whole journey has taken me to OGTC as well, and I think it can be best described, the way that I've kind of went through this journey is opportunities have appeared for me. So I'm not trying to be big-headed or say, oh, I just got a job in IT, it was really easy. What I'm saying is I kind of lined myself up for the opportunities to appear. So to give you an example of that, one of my first jobs was in retail. I worked for a shop called Comet. It's a bit like Dixon's. They closed down now, but they sold everything from white goods, TVs, washing machines, microwaves. And there was one day that I was selling a microwave to a woman, a customer that came in. And I was telling her about my passion for IT at the time. I just happened to be telling her about the functions on a microwave. And she said, you know what, Scott, there's a job going at Inspire. And I got that opportunity just kind of presented itself because I kind of communicated what my passion was more than anything else. And then the opportunity presented itself. So I think that's kind of like my main learning from this whole journey so far. Whilst these opportunities have come to me, I've had to communicate what my passion is. Next slide, please, James. So the types of careers that are open to you if you're looking to get into IT and systems, digital. I break these down into 3 sections. So you've got the software development side of things. Now, this is an extremely in-demand, what's the word I want for, skill at the moment, software development. There is more people looking for software developers than there actually are software developers. If you can gain the experience in coding and developing software, 5 years of experience, you can pretty much ask any price that you want from a salary. So it's a really good, if you're looking to, be paid well, software development is definitely the role to go into. There is one thing with software development, and it does take a very certain type of mindset to do it and a certain type of personality. When I started my career off in IT, I actually did an HND in software development, but I realized after that course that I did not want to actually develop software because it takes this type of mindset. And I kind of went towards the infrastructure side of things. That's the next thing that you can see in this slide. And that is really the hardware, the servers, the network, the data centers, how it all communicates with each other. And the main advice I would give you here is if you're looking to get a job in that infrastructure side, is gain the experience first before you get the accreditation. I've seen many times before when I speak to younger people, they'll talk about how they want to get into IT and they're going to go and get a degree in networking or some sort of networking accreditation. Well, the networking side of things is actually a really small piece of the whole infrastructure side of things. and it's quite specialized. So if you get that accreditation, you'll probably have a hard time finding a job in networking. And I really suggest that you get the experience whilst you're doing the accreditation, because experience counts a lot for when you're supporting IT infrastructure and learning as you go along. And then the third thing here is sort of the management that James referred to before, and being a solutions provider. So I mentioned there's sales, and it's actually, I'm going to use the terminology solutions provider, because if you're selling to, for example, another organization, technologies, or if you're doing it internally, what you're actually doing is you're really just communicating what the technology does and what the business outcomes of that technology are to the leadership team or the managers or the CEO or the business owner. So you need to be pretty good at communicating, which I'm probably not the greatest, but I do attempt to. But you also need that the knowledge and insight and the experience of the different technologies. So it's something that's probably going to come later in a career. You certainly could get into a sales role if you're like, if you can charm people right away. But the problem you might run into is that you might actually not know the technologies behind that and be able to provide the correct solution. If we can go to the next slide, please, James. So these are the big things to look out for in energy transition. Now, we're lucky just now because lockdowns kind of forced pretty much all organizations to upskill in digital transformation. So we've had a lot of talk about digital transformation and what we're going to do, but well, guess what? The lockdowns kind of forced a lot of organizations to actually start doing things a little bit differently with technologies. The biggest ones for and these types of technologies underpin everything in energy transition, so they can apply to any part of it. The biggest ones to look out for at the moment, Azure and cloud computing. If you speak to an older IT guy like me, when we talk about cloud computing, we're talking about having your emails or your files in the cloud, but there's actually so much more to it than that now. So things with Azure machine learning or Azure artificial intelligence, Amazon have AWS, something similar. If you can learn machine learning or AI based on these Azure services, you can really have a massive impact on an organization that will completely transform the direction that it's going to change, and it'll add a tremendous amount of value into the marketplace. So it's certainly something to look at. The other one I've got here, top right, is cybersecurity. Organizations are being attacked constantly, from email phishing, ransomware attacks, crypto locker. It's a really big topic in the IT at the moment. So if you're looking for where people are looking for skills, and it's maybe not software development, then look at cybersecurity. The other one here, person holding a mobile phone, mobile app development is totally underutilized at the moment, or there's not many people that are doing it, but there's a huge demand for it. If I go into LinkedIn just now, and if I'm looking around my local area up here in Aberdeen, and I'm looking for a mobile iOS developer, you can hardly find anyone that has that on their LinkedIn profile. Again, it's one of these skills that is in demand, but there's just not enough people to fulfill it. And that means you can pretty much ask any price you want from it. And the final one here is the help desk, the infrastructure side of things. If you're looking to start out on this, a first line help desk support engineer, plenty of jobs on places like LinkedIn right now that are offering these. Not really that much experience required. You're really more about customer service, how you sound on the phone, and can you figure out the basic problems more than anything else. I would suggest that if you're looking for the infrastructure side. If we can go to the next slide, please, James. So what to do right now, I'm going to try and give you some things that you could do as like action points to get started with this if you're thinking about it. Aberdeen, they have some really great courses on software development and cybersecurity, ethical hacking, things like that. I believe at RGU also have courses on cybersecurity as well. Infrastructure and networks, as I mentioned already. Look at the LinkedIn job section, you'll find a lot there. Recruitment companies as well, you'll find that they're always looking for those help desk first line engineer type roles. They're always open. If you want to take it a step further, you can sign up for the LinkedIn Sales Navigator. And what you can do there is you can outreach and you can go and talk to like business owners at Dynamic Edge, so the people that are in charge, and tell them about your passion, tell them about what you want to do in a career, and they're going to give you some great insight there. You can message them directly, using Sales Navigator, you get is a 2-week free trial of it. And I think you can get up to 20 messages to those individuals. And it's a really great way just to find out what you maybe need to do next and what people are looking for. Cyber jobs, I've got down here, this ISAM. They are the certification body for cyber essentials. So it's a certificate that all organizations can get, but this is the body in charge of issuing the certificates. Now, on this particular page that I've got here, it actually lists all of the cybersecurity companies that help other organizations through this certification process. So if you're looking for a cyber job right now, you literally have a list of IT and cybersecurity companies that are looking for, they'll be looking for resources to help them with this certification piece. And then the final one, add your experience to LinkedIn, specifically the technologies that you're maybe working on, you've already tried out, you've maybe developed, and put them on LinkedIn. As I mentioned already, iOS development, Azure, machine learning, things like that. There's really sort of niche things that a recruiter is going to pick up on, it's going to ping up on their radar, and they'll be looking to speak to you. So it's not just about on your LinkedIn profile, not just about your personal information and your history, but these specifics and these sort of niche technologies that no one else is talking about, but are actually massive, that people are looking for. I think that's us, James. I think that's all my slides. So yeah, I think we're going to open the floor up to questions now. We've got a few more messages.
Well done, Scott and James. You did that just over 20 minutes, so spot on. Well done with your timing. Yeah, we've got some questions, and if anybody else has got questions, please type them into chat, or if you raise your hand and I can come and ask you the question. Just before I go, in fact, let's go to some of these questions here. I've got a few to ask you as well, but there's some really great ones here. Let's go to Liam's ones first. Liam, some of your question might have been answered with that slide that Scott went through in the LinkedIn Navigator, but here's the question, Scott. What is the job market like in Aberdeen at the moment, and where is the best place to start to have an entry-level role? Liam has started doing his TIA plus qualification, but he's a bit worried about a saturated market in Aberdeen following COVID. He's an extremely driven individual, but unfortunately, due to his work closing and being made redundant, he needs to find a new path. So, James and Scott, what would you advise there?
I'll go first. So, as I say, I'd probably advise going and onto the LinkedIn jobs section. You'd mentioned, Liam, I think that you were a team lead in telecoms. So, what types of experiences in that telecom role were you customer facing, or was it the technology that you were dealing with, or were you dealing with a team? Based on those experiences, going to other competitors of whoever you were working for would be my first step. So seeing what they've maybe got to offer, and they'd be able to point you in the right direction. Again, looking through a list of potentially, if you're going down the telecom route, looking at telecom companies in Aberdeen, there's a lot actually based in the central belt that operate up in Aberdeen. So then they're always looking for a remote site engineer to help them if they're based down centrally. So that's another spin in it, where you might have a company that's looking to expand more on a national scale, but they don't have anyone up here. That's certainly a way that you could do it.
Yeah, just to kind of build on that, I would be looking at local companies in LinkedIn for a start. So companies based in Aberdeenshire area as well, because there are a lot of companies that operate on the outskirts of the city that might also be an option for you to work for. And the other thing I sometimes would do is ask friends who work in any industry, who does their IT support, because that often sort of flags up companies that you might not have originally thought of. If it's a third-party company, there might be companies there that you maybe won't find somewhere else. So yeah, just have a scout about.
I think the other thing is there's newer companies. There's a lot of startups as well in Aberdeen, and they're smaller in size, and they maybe don't actually have enough money to take someone on a full-time basis. But if you go into them, you're saying, hey, I just want to get the experience, and those smaller companies might be able to offer something on a part-time basis. There's also places like Upwork, where you can actually put up your profile there on Upwork with the technologies that you specialize in, And you'll find that that's an international network there where you can quite easily pick up work based on your experiences. It's usually done sort of on a project basis, whilst it's not a salary that you're going to get. You'll get sort of an amount for the project. And again, it's going to add to that experience.
That's some really great suggestions, James and Scott. Thanks, Liam. Oh, that's great. Great response there. Awesome. Appreciate it greatly. Super. And best of luck, Liam. I hope you find a new role quickly. Another question here. Here's a fun one. Were either of you worried about going into a career that was your hobby? Did it take the fun out of it?
No, not really. It gave me a bit more opportunities to learn about my hobby, I would say. Again, building sort of gaming PCs from a very young age, I thought I knew quite a lot, but then looking at other applications and other things you can use to kind of develop those skills that you wouldn't normally have thought of because of the context of a work environment or requirements that people need that you might not need. It gives you a chance to go a bit more kind of sideways with your development. You're not focused straight down the middle. So no, it's never killed the love for me personally anyway.
And I think for me, it was almost like they're going to pay me to do this. It's like what I do at home. So, and I touched on what James was saying there as well. There's always new skills to learn. So whilst, yeah, I knew the technologies, I had a lot to learn about business and just how to be around other people, like, how you speak to the CEO, how you speak to someone that's got an IT problem, and, that customer facing role.
That's good, great answers, both of you. In fact, if it's okay, if I ask you a quick question, I was really interested in both of you saying that, you didn't, well, James, you mentioned you didn't finish your university degree and, it took you a little bit of time to get where you were. So I've got two questions which kind of link to Liam's question about the fact that it's potentially an oversaturated market. So you might write your CV, you might try and get a job, but then when you're actually at the interview, how do you make sure that you are the one that an employer would want to employ over and above other people that they might be seeing? So maybe come to you, James, first. What would you say? What would your advice be?
So I guess in regards to interviews, the main thing I had in my corner walking interview was just kind of being honest and being humble because I didn't have that experience and I had to be quite open about that. So I can remember my interview for Dynamic Edge, which was my first IT job. I had to relate to a bunch of IT-related questions that were being asked of me to other skills and other things I'd done in my life because I didn't have that experience. So I think I compared managing multiple tickets at any one time. I compared that to the operation of a crane lift in a workshop yard. Just because that was my only frame of reference, but being aware and communicating many resources at once in a live environment with kind of ramifications, it was a transferable situation, so it kind of paid off for me. But mainly that sort of being honest and being humble, because they're looking to employ you as a person, not just your abilities in a thing.
That's a really good point. Anything you'd want to add to that one, Scott?
Yeah, I'd probably just support what James was saying there. Honest, humble, and picking up like the experiences that you've had and how they might relate to the job that you're being interviewed for. Also, things like presentation skills are, especially in the IT world, they'll send you far if you can present well. So even practicing 5 or 6 times before the interview, I would certainly say that's something that's helped me. There's also putting yourself into the frame of mind of the business that's interviewing you. What are they actually looking for? Why are they interviewing you? And just keep that in mind and trying to fill those gaps.
Excellent. Good answers from both of you. Thanks. And for anybody on the call who wants to maybe learn a little bit more about interview skills or how to find jobs and apply for them, we've got a couple of masterclasses in September, which you're welcome to join. You'll find it on the Inspire20 page. Right. 2 last questions. Liam, I'm going to come to your second question at the very end. So we've got a question here. This is the last question for today before Liam's question. Where do you see yourselves in 10 years' time? And where are you most excited? what are you most excited about the energy transition? Gosh, somebody snuck in 2 questions there. So I'll maybe take, Scott, you can maybe answer the second one about the energy transition. James, I'll ask you, where do you see yourself in 10 years' time?
Who knows? 10 years ago, I was in a boiler suit with dirty spanners in my hand. So who knows? It could be anywhere. I hope continuing to develop the skills I'm working on just now, because I'm having a fantastic time. So let's go with IT development.
Fantastic. Oh, in fact, Scott, I'm going to have to ask you that question too, because now I want to know your answer.
Well, it kind of feeds into both. So when I was interviewed at OGTC, I did a presentation on, what's the future, and I talked about self-driving cars. There was a big piece about self-driving cars and how that relates to how so many people are going to be affected by this, because there's all of the different, if you've got self-driving cars, for example, and no one has to buy a car anymore, then there's all these different services and things like that that just completely disappear. But if you can try and predict the things that are going to be required in the future, and you hear people like Elon Musk talking about, well, we won't have jobs because AI will do everything. Well, at this point in our history, the AI is still being developed. And that's why I mentioned that in my presentation. So I think artificial intelligence, machine learning is going to be massive over the next 10 years. So if you can get your head around that, from that, and how that maybe applies to the energy transition, then you'd be well placed.
Good answer. So hopefully we will still have jobs in 10 years' time and the machines won't have taken over.
I don't know about that, actually.
Or if they are, you'll be looking after them, so you'll still have a job. Great. Okay. Liam, your question about Warcraft. Okay. Scott and James, do you play Warcraft?
When I was younger, yeah, but not so much anymore, unfortunately. There are other things that take up all my time just now.
Scott.
I used to be a gamer, and then I met my wife, and it was when I first started going out with her. And I remember she came home one day, and I'd sat in my flat the whole day in a darkened room, playing games, and she just looked at me and says, "This can't last, Scott." And that was like the last time I touched games. So.
I think there's a warning lesson in there for us all.
Yeah,
Brilliant question, brilliant answer, guys. Thank you. Right, before we finish up, I must thank you both, Scott and James. That was amazing. I've worked with you both for some time now, but really enjoyed hearing more about your experience. And now I can see why you offer such great support. We're really lucky to have you at the OGTC. Thank you. And thank you for our participants and your questions. For anybody that's interested, hopefully you saw that message that's just come up in the chats panel. We're running a hackathon in September, so if you're interested in coming along and improving your digital skills and taking part in a hackathon and you're aged between 16 and 24, you'll see the link there. Please come and join us. Great thing to add to your CV. If you're interested in coming along to any of the rest of our final sessions in Inspire20, if you click on the QR code you see on the screen there, and that will take you to our booking page. We've got 2 more career inspirations, one on law and one on HR, and then we've got our last 2 master classes, which I said earlier are about finding and applying for jobs, and the second one is about interview skills, including how to do an interview online, which is not as easy as it sounds. Here's a few other places you can go and get good information. You'll find the links on our website, and we really want to make Inspire20 work for you. So if you've got any feedback, ideas, here's our email address, stem@theogtc. Once again, thank you, James and Scott. Thank you for everybody for taking part today, and hopefully we'll see you again next week. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, guys.